has been a CAMRA member since 1988. He was voted onto the National Executive for 18 years, named as one of the top 40 campaigners at the 40th anniversary celebration, and was national chairman for 8 terms, we decided in the end. 8 years, yeah. Until 2018. So, Colin, you've participated in a number of significant campaigns that have affected breweries and consumers in various ways. I pointed out the column that you wrote about the cask breather in 2000 because that debate comes up in the book. There it is that the 2000 Watts Brewing, brilliant. March 2000, I think it was.
March 2000, yep.
And this debate was, as far as I could tell, the longest raging that CAMRA's had of kind of internal disagreements. It was the cask breather was banned at the 1982 AGM. Endless back and to about it. CAMRA finally declared itself neutral in 2018, so that's slightly longer than I've been alive at the time that the debate had been raging on. Could you tell me a bit more about these kinds of debates and the issues that you were involved with in your time as national chairman on the national executive and generally CAMRA big wig, please, Colin?
Aye, well, you know, I used to describe myself as officially the UK's top real ale drinker. And a colleague of mine who spoke a smidgen of Italian, and for any Italians there or anybody who speaks proper Italian, I'm going to apologise right now, but he referred to me as the Tutti di Cape Bieri, which I think is the king of all beer drinkers, which was very kind of him. But the big one, which we have discussed and is going to, might even, the book that I'm writing just now will feature largely in it, is the beer duty escalator. And you know, about a year ago, there was an article, Real Ale Heroes in Beer Magazine, which is about John Gilbert. And John is absolutely one of my Real Ale heroes. And every conversation I had with John started with John saying, well, Colin, what are CAMRA going to do about ... And this one was, so what are CAMRA going to do about the beer duty escalator? Which meant that if beer duty escalator, which was introduced by my MP, which was even more annoying, the then Chancellor Alistair Darling, was that beer duty would go up by 2 percentage points above the rate of inflation. So if inflation was 2.5%, then beer duty would go up 4.5%. And it increased duty significantly over the 4 or 5 years it was on. And I said, well, you're right, John, we should do something about this. So what shall we do? We had to think about it. And then there's at the 2011 members weekend in Sheffield, the then national executive, the 12 of us signed a letter to the Chancellor asking him to scrap the beer duty escalator. And it was a stunt, you know, there's no doubt about it. But Jonathan Mayle, and I don't know if Jonathan's on tonight, I know that Mike Benner's in the audience. So Jonathan and Mike took it away, and you'll have to excuse my language here, they polished a turd. So they got this kind of notion of mine that we had to do something, and they turned it into the beer duty escalator petition. And the business plan was that we aimed for 10,000 signatures a month. If a petition to Parliament gets 100,000 signatures, then it's debated in Parliament. We were on course to get it by the end of the year, and then an email went out on the Tuesday that Great British Beer Festival opened in 2012 from me to all members asking them to sign the petition. Now, that week, we got, I think, in the region, I'm guessing here, but we got in the region of 20,000. We got a lot more in a week than we expected for a month. So by the end of October, a petition was signed. We delivered it to, and then we had a lobby day on the 12th of December 2012. So it was 12-12-12. I think, as I said to you, I had no input into the date, but it's, you know, whoever did, I hope it was deliberate that it was 12-12-12. And Mike Benner appeared on the Daily Politics, which I think started at 12 o'clock. So it all tied in quite nicely. Myself and a few others pitched up at Downing Street to present, because these days it's an electronic petition, so we didn't have pages of stuff. I think Julian Huff and Mike Benner had delivered one to Downing Street a few years before, and it was just after the Plebgate thing, which many people might remember. And you know, the guys on the police officers on Downing Street, at the end of Downing Street, they've got semi-automatic machine guns. So I said to the 3 or 4 of my colleagues, I said, right, for Christ's sakes, whatever you do, don't say plebs. These guys have got automatic weapons, so, you know, keep a civil tongue in your head. But, you know, it was fine. We presented the petition. We asked if we could go inside. The man with a gun said no. But we got our photographs taken outside number 10. We then went to lobby our MPs. I went to lobby Alistair Darling, who was my MP, who was, I think, was just an opposition backbencher by that point. And we chatted away, and then I said, well, so will you lobby the Chancellor? He says, yes, I will. I said, he said, I'll write to the Chancellor. And he wrote off to the Chancellor, and him or one of his staff sent me the letter back, sent me the letter from the Chancellor back, and it was titled, Dear Alistair, yours George. So I'm guessing that George Osborne, the then Chancellor, and his predecessor, Alistair Darling, had some kind of personal relationship, you know, despite the fact that they were politically diametrically opposed. And I had to read it, the letter, and I showed it to Jonathan, and it looked to me like a study in equivocation, you know, a classic politician's letter. But we sent it to a journalist. I can't remember the journalist's name. I do remember the paper, but I don't think it's fair to mention it. But we sent it to a political journalist of some experience, and he had a look at it, and he said, you know what, Colin, he's going to scrap the escalator. Oh, how do he says, just trust me, he's definitely going to scrap the escalator. And of course, in, I think, March the 24th, March the 20th, March 24th, whatever the budget was in 2012, he scrapped it, and it was a great day. And after the lobby day, one little anecdote, a late friend of mine from the Kingdom of Fife branch, his MP was Gordon Brown, and he reckoned he absolutely despised Gordon Brown, despite the fact he'd never met him. But went to his office, met him. Gordon Brown charmed him to the nth degree, and he came back raving about the guy. He says, might not agree with his politics. He said, but what a nice guy he was. So it was all very positive. We went to the Emmanuel Centre, which is just a couple of 100 yards from Palace of Westminster. Our stewarding team, there were loads of guys making sure that we got from either Portcullis House, which is where I had met Alistair Darling, or the Palace of Westminster to Emmanuel House. Stewards were great. The difference with the stewards that day, as opposed to when they're working at beer festivals, I'm sure while they were still wearing their orange gear, they could have a pint. Everybody had a pint. We had a load of speakers, a lot of MPs speaking. Great. I did tell them that you've got a great audience here. This is the best audience you're going to get outside your own party conferences. And say, I'm very proud to have been part of it and to have played a small part. I'd actually forgotten until Jonathan Mayle reminded me a couple of years later. I said, don't forget, Colin, the petition was your idea. Well, the idea, the kernel of the idea was mine, but with help from John Gilbert. But Jonathan and Mike were great, and you know, a fantastic day, and it worked. You know, we tilted windmills, and I said at conference the next year, I says, conference, sometimes the reason we tilt at windmills is because sometimes we win.
Fantastic. Thanks, Colin. Well, that was easy for a conversation. I didn't have to say anything. So thanks.
People who know me will know that when I get started, it's very difficult to stop me.
I very much remember this from your interview. I think I asked one question and then I had an hour of footage to work through. So but thanks for joining us tonight. And those are the stories that are in the book as well. So thank you. Appreciate that.